Now, Cosatu says it has resolved to remain neutral on issues of ANC leadership ahead of next week's 55th elective conference. The Trade Union Federation says it will instead focus on conference policy outcomes and organisational resolutions. It said it's not supporting President Cyril Ramaphosa's re-election for a second term at Nasrec on the south of Johannesburg. For more on this, we are joined by Cosatu's Deputy President, Michael Shingange. Shingange, very good evening to you. Thank you so much for joining us. Welcome.
Thank you very much, Mpo. Thanks for having us, and good evening to your viewers.
Now, you were the first alliance partner to support President Cyril Ramaphosa's successful campaign for ANC presidency in 2017. You've since had a change of heart.
No, we didn't have a change of heart, except that we supported him for 2017 like we supported other presidents in previous conferences. Yeah. This time around, we have chosen not to take a side on the contenders that are there vying for positions of the ANC. Not only that one of the president, but also the rest of the other leadership in the top six. But of course, we accepted that we will support and work with anyone whom the delegates and the branches of the ANC are going to elect. Our task was to focus on what more can we contribute into the policy outcomes and also try to monitor the implementation of those policies.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So when you backed Ramaphosa in 2017, I assume you believe that he was worker-friendly. And, you know, so during the few years, what have you made of his leadership style? Especially, as I read this, as he said that it's not the role of government to regulate laws of the market forces and that development must be driven by market forces.
Well, maybe before I come to the statement, and it's not that we thought he's a worker-friendly. Mm-hmm. We have always participated in the debates of the leadership of the ANC, all the conferences, and we have always supported a president, if you remember, yes, that have always won the conference, yeah, be it Mbeki, be it Zuma, be it Mandela, be it Ramaphosa. And sometimes, particularly in the last conference, we were guided by some principles that were there about the succession because he was a deputy president at the time. But of course, we can't take away the fact that he was coming from our ranks. We were with him in the trenches of the workers. We were with him in the trenches of the struggle to liberate this country. However, this time around, our view was that there are so many things that are going through that our Congress, which is normally the platform which usually discusses the issue of the conference, had to deal with in terms of the economic trajectory in this country, including the retrenchments. Yeah. It's the same with the CEC. Of course, we are disappointed with the statement he's making, not only because him at the personal level making that, but that seems to have been a doctrine with which our government lives with, that we leave everything else to the market forces. As a movement, we don't seem to be decisive. We don't seem to be clear about what policies that responds to the needs of the majority of our people that we're supposed to be representing. That is not different from what he made. That is not a government responsibility, for instance, to create jobs, despite the fact that that is not only in the policy of the ANC, but also in the manifesto with which he was elected on. So that's a disappointment statement. Of course, you can't attribute it to only him. Yes. You attribute him to the entire cabinet and the entire government that is leading.
So what about government's refusal to implement the last part of a 3-year wage deal? I would imagine that that in itself may have affected your position of neutrality.
Well, that part is not... we need to underline that the real issue here is that yes, we didn't have a discussion. We itemize our discussion when we go to congresses and the CEC, in particular through the report. So we have a political, we've got the socio-economic. So under socio-economic report, there were many things that we needed to deal with, which made us to believe that for this upcoming 55th National Conference of the ANC, we need to go and contest the content of the resolutions that are going to come out of there rather than the leadership. So we spend more time on that one. Of course, the attack on collective bargaining across the sectors of the economy was one of the socio-economic matters that we discussed. And I must say that at Congress, the delegates in their majority will have demonstrated that part, because it has now spilled over to the private sector, because the government has now set an example. They've boldly so, and they've boldly taken this matter to court. They've even influenced the judges that this now is. So the private sector, the mining sector, the manufacturing and the retail sector have followed the example of government. So under socio-economic, that matter of collective bargaining was one of those things that came in. But I must say, the issue of the whether or not to enter the leadership debate of our alliance partners, the ANC, and being that one of the SACP, this time around we decided to leave it to our alliance partners, because what is important for us is to have an alliance that is functional. It's have an alliance with the leadership that will come out of the conferences, and we work towards reconfiguring the alliance. You know that we live in communities, we live with members, we are members of the ANC ourselves. There are many different views that are taking place. They would not want to find ourselves with loggerheads with the people who are having interest on what must happen. But also, every time we have a discussion about the leadership questions of any alliance partner, it doesn't always leave us very far. We normally have fractures after that, because it's often a result of a very robust debate that sometimes leave us being divided. So we chose to prioritize the unity and cohesion of the Federation and focus on what is important for the workers, irrespective of each individual worker's preferences in the conference of the ANC.
Yeah. So at your National Congress in September, your largest affiliates, Nahau, Dunosa, called for Cosatu to dump the ANC and instead support the South African Communist Party during elections come 2024. I understand that there was voting that occurred, but we, the public, are yet to know the outcome unless it was released.
Yes, no, the reason that the public is yet to know it is because the Congress have deferred some resolutions of socio-economic, international, and some political resolutions, which include the outcome of the political resolutions that were voted for, to the Central Executive Committee. When the Central Executive Committee met 2 weeks ago, it resolved to convene a special CEC in January to conclude that matter. So yes, that's the reason why the results are not out, because they were not announced at Congress. Yes. They must be rectified and be interpreted by the CEC. But also, it's not correct that those affiliates, they were calling for the dumping of the ANC, because by dumping the ANC will necessarily mean maybe moving away from the alliance. It was a discussion that has always been there, and there's been consensus about the South African Communist Party taking its strategic leadership role in the National Democratic Revolution. But of course, there was a question of timing and the modalities that still have to be discussed with the ANC and the SSCP, because whatever we do as Cosatu, it's about the alliance platform consolidating the gains of democracy, but also consolidating the state power into what we call the people's camp inside the alliance. We have always been in alliance with the ANC and the SSCP, and have always been voting for the ANC, but that was never interpreted as dumping the SSCP. No. When we are voting the ANC, we are not dumping the SSCP. Okay. We are still part of the SSCP in the alliance. So whether or not that resolution will come out and say it is now or is in the future in terms of the time frame, that will not mean that workers are dumping the ANC, because the ANC is still part of the revolutionary alliance, of course, at this point in time led by it. It's what we call a reconfiguration of the alliance. Remember, we've been asking for the reconfiguration of the alliance many times. This time around, I think what the Congress delegates were saying was that let's not ask anyone, let's not ask the permission from anyone to reconfigure the alliance. Let's reconfigure it from the ground ourselves. So we'll have to come together as the ANC and the party and discuss this question of how are the modalities of reconfiguration of the alliance, including that one of monitoring, implementing, and evaluating of the implementation of the resolutions, but also holding government accountable collectively as the alliance, other than what is happening now, just being one party that is holding the government accountable while we are part of the alliance, all of us.
Okay. So with the outcome, I mean, it's either one or the other. Yes. In terms of the outcome. I mean, what are the probabilities there?
What do you mean?
When it comes to the voting and those results being unveiled and now made public after the processes that you speak to have already been covered?
Yes, so when the results are presented to the CEC and the CEC have interpreted what the resolution will mean, obviously every resolution that gets taken in the Congress gets implemented. Yes. But there are, as I said, there are modalities, there are time frames, there are processes to be followed. So we normally get into election campaign from time to time. So wherever the results of the Congress will direct us where we go, it means we'll have to get into the election mode. But as I said, this thing will also require a wide consultation process with the structures of the federation and the structures of the alliance, because we have always campaigned for election within the framework of the alliance. So whether it's going to be the ANC, whether it's going to be the SACP, it's still an alliance framework of campaign, because we're not breaking the alliance. It's a question of just making sure that this state power has to be contested by a broader revolutionary forces, which we call the People's Camp. So that modalities and the framework will have to be something that's agreed on within the alliance, not just the people walking away from each other. There's no one who's walking away from anybody here. Yeah. We are still part of the alliance, and actually we are reconfiguring it organically and organizationally without asking permission from anybody.
Yes. The 16th of December, an important period for the ANC. Where will you be standing based on the outcome?
Which outcome?
Of the conference. As members go in and a candidate is then pushed to the forefront. It could be anybody, one of two.
Yes. Firstly, we are attending that conference. We are invited as the alliance, as we normally do. Secondly, many of our members and leaders who are members of our affiliates and shop stewards are delegates in their own rights of the ANC. Many of our members will have been nominated by the structures of the ANC, by the branches of the ANC. They qualified within the NEC. We will offer our support to those, especially those that we know them very well. We will not stand in the way of any other board. That we are saying that we have not taken a side, particularly on the top 6, doesn't mean that we oppose anyone. So when we say, no, we didn't say this president or that president or this secretary general or that other secretary general, doesn't mean that there is somebody that will say, no, this one must not be elected. We are saying we're giving this space purely to the process of the ANC. We, as the alliance partner, will embrace the outcome of the conference, and then we will work with the leadership that will have been elected in the conference, because it is that leadership that must be in the alliance with Cosatu, with SACP, and pushing the transformation agenda of this country. We do not want to spoil and polarize the situation of the alliance partners' relations simply because of the preferences that we will have held when we're going to a conference. We want to protect that space.
Okay, thank you, sir. Thank you for your time. We're going to have to leave it there. That was Cosatu's Deputy President, Michael Shingange.